Just so you know, if you don't request to talk to me, I won't be here. Maybe you do. Maybe contractually you do. You can write whatever the hell you're going to write. I don't read it anyway, Greg. So.
I know that.
All right. Day two, you know, I was proud of our guys. I thought they came back pretty good. You know, kind of one of those deals today where the reps are starting to pile up and you see some of these guys, like I was getting after them at the end there in terms of taking care of their bodies. I think that's so crucial as you get into these really the first 5 or 6 days. At some point in time, it kind of levels out for them. And they get into football shape. I use my hands when I talk. You'll figure it out.
Sorry.
I'm not even Italian. But, you know, it's going to take a few minutes for us to get, hopefully nothing that'll be too nagging or whatever. But let me just say this, from here on out, I'm not talking about injuries, okay? If it's a season-ending thing, I've told you guys this in the past, if it's a season-ending thing, you know, I'll let you know, hey, this guy's going to be out for an extended period of time or he's going to be out for the season, whatever. But if you guys are going to, if you're going to ask me why so-and-so is standing there in this jersey, I'm not answering those questions. It's totally meaningless, okay? If they're in a jersey, they're on the team, they're out here, they're working through something, you can use your imagination and figure it out, okay? Other than that, I'll take your questions and we'll roll. Is this supposed to be for me?
So,
like, I can't read any of that.
During that last team period, what were your thoughts? What were your impressions? Looked like a pretty spirited.
No, I thought they had a good exchange. You know, I mean, like I said, the two things that I was critical of, you know, one thing on offense, just our operation right now. You know, and sometimes that happens. We're split into two groups, and so not all their coaches are there, and so we just need to have guys take charge. And you know, we shouldn't have guys milling around behind the huddle. Everybody should be with the play caller. And so just our operation in and out. That was probably the thing that I felt like we need to improve upon the most in that particular segment. And then defensively, it comes to, and it's still the missed ops. You know, we're having opportunities to take the ball away or get off the field, and we're not taking advantage of those. And so those are the things that I think that you know, I felt like we needed to improve upon. I thought our energy was good. I thought the execution, I think there was some, you know, we're getting some wrinkles in, and it's going to be a while before it's all perfect. But as long as our effort is, I think we've got a chance.
The staff's been together a while now. You'll be able to split fields. Do you think you're getting more work done with the staff?
Yeah, absolutely. Now there are some things that we're working through. You know, just logistically, it's like, okay, how do we get this done? How do we get that done? With, you know, not having 65 people like they do at University of Oklahoma or something, where you can just, you know, get 19 guys spotting the ball. Here we got to kind of work together and get some things done. And so I think it'll be something that'll be beneficial for us. I don't know that we'll do the team stuff, continue to do the team stuff split field as kind of fall camp goes on, but probably the 7-on-7 for sure. And so just being able to get that many reps, I think, is really beneficial for us.
I think I saw a few drills kind of working on pass rush stuff. You know, how much is that a point of emphasis, you know, in this preseason?
Well, I think it's always going to be a point of emphasis for us. We were not very good at getting after the quarterback really in our first 2 years here, and that was kind of a symptom of two things. You know, we didn't bring a lot of pressure by design because we didn't have a lot of confidence in our secondary's ability to play tight man, and so we didn't want to give up the big play. It was kind of that make them earn it type of deal. And so for us now, we feel a little bit better about our secondary. We can get after it with the front a little bit more, and so I think Coach Choate and like I talked yesterday about our edge guys. I think that we've got a little bit more talent, a little bit more juice on the edge, and I think Coach Choute's done a nice job of continuing to develop that, and he'll work on it probably every day some.
Without giving too much away, do you think you could, you know, be experimenting a little bit more with blitzes and things like that?
Well, that's something that's always in our package. You know, I mean, defenses are going to be holistic. I mean, you're not just going to do one or two things. You've got to be able to attack an offense in a variety of ways. And so we have man pressures and have for a number of years in our package. We've had zone pressures, we've had bogus pressures, and now it's just our willingness to maybe have that confidence level in our secondary, as well as our front's ability to affect the quarterback, because we don't want to make, even if it's good coverage, if it's for 5 seconds, it's not going to be good. So it's kind of a combination of those things.
With all the linebackers that you've talked about, you know, the options that you have, I guess, how do you go about, you know, trying to parse out, you know, who's going to potentially get on the field? And
that's what fall camp is all about, Paul. I mean, we're just out, I mean, every day, every rep, we film all of this stuff. We evaluate everything they do, whether it's a special teams fundamental drill or, you know, when they're going over bags. I mean, we're constantly evaluating these guys, and so whoever is the most consistently productive over the course of camp is going to be the guys that are going to play the most. And so that's the beautiful thing about this time of year, is everybody's getting some reps, so everybody has hope. We're not taking hope away, but at some point in time, the rubber meets the road, and every day, like I tell them, hey, your film's your resume. What you put out there, that's who you are, and so you're competing for a job every day.
Are you thinking, you know, there might be more of a rotation than in the past, just because of?
I think there's the potential for that. You know, I mean, usually you kind of roll your linebackers in one group, and you might have a nickel package, but I've been a part of teams where you have guys that have very similar skill sets, and it helps each one of them to play 40 snaps a game if it's an 80 snap game, rather than having one guy take 80. So it just kind of depends on how it plays out. Really don't have a crystal ball right now. Injuries will play a factor in that, and we'll certainly have some of those as we go through the year, so it'll be interesting to see how it comes together.
Can you talk about Grant Collins' recovery and him playing Mike linebacker again?
Yeah, well, the Grant thing was kind of interesting. He went out to Seattle and he ended up having one surgery done towards the end of the season, and another one done right after, I think it was right after Christmas, and I really didn't think he would be out here. And he went back and got his checkup before to kind of get released to train fully, and the doctor was very optimistic, and then he went out right before fall camp during their break, prior to fall camp starting, and basically got the green light. And the doctor was just very, very pleased from what I've heard in terms of his recovery and his ability to kind of get going. Now I think we've got to be smart, and put so many miles on a car. But I think that he's well ahead of where I thought he would be, and so I'm very optimistic that he's going to be able to play significant downs for us early in the season.
About the daily quarterback analysis. What did you think today?
Well, I thought we had more Q runs in, so that favors some guys over the others. I thought Casey had a really good day, on the other field. I thought he had an excellent day. Ruben Beltran, drinking out of a fire hose today, first day out there, getting yelled at all the time. So he'll be better, but you can tell the guy has no conscience. He's a gunslinger. He was throwing it every single time, and open or not, I'm throwing the ball. And so, I think he's a very confident kid. Was a state champion in high school. I thought Troy did a nice job of operating. We've got to get kind of coming back to the operation thing. There's some snap issues that we're having that really get us out of some plays at times too. So I don't think we've been consistent enough in that, and that's something that we work on every day, and we'll get that down. But I think Casey had a really good day today. You see us kind of experiment with Travis is a tremendous athlete. Sure. You see him get the ball in his hands somehow, some way, and it was kind of fun to see he and Troy out there together on the field today. And, Tucker, I think, struggled in the team period, but was very good in 7-on-7. So every day is going to be a little bit of a mixed bag until we get to that first scrimmage, and then we're counting on these guys to separate each other from each other in terms of their consistency.
Some of the new guys, Dante Baracco and Daniel Hardy, how would you just kind of break down how they look so far?
Daniel's a very, he only played 1 year in high school football, was primarily a basketball player in high school, and 1 year at college at Siskiyou. So he's a very he's very athletic, long, can really run, but the football side of things is still kind of a work in progress. So I think from an athleticism standpoint, very, very happy with him. I think he's a guy that can have an impact for us in the kicking game, certainly. And as the year goes on, I could see him earning reps at Sam linebacker. I'm very impressed with him as a young man, just as a person, number one. He is a phenomenal addition to our program and our university, and he's going to be a really good player. Dante, a guy that went to IMG, played at a Power 5 school as a true freshman. He's getting more comfortable every day. I guess that's what I'd say, and not just with the scheme and the system, but also with his teammates and his surroundings. I see him really starting to relax a little bit. You see some more of his personality come out, and he's got some, and so I've been pleased.
There's some issues in the huddle during some of the team periods. Is that a result of having some inexperienced quarterbacks, and kind of who's that leadership following?
So that's kind of what I was talking about operation. So we got the two field thing going on. There's no offensive line coach, so the offensive linemen are standing back here. Coach Armstrong's on the other field calling it for that group. So the tight ends are standing back there. Bob's on the sideline with the quarterbacks and the running backs. So that's what I meant by the operation. Really, is just like we can't be taking the field with 11 guys or 10 guys. The quarterback's got to count heads and make sure we're there. But we also need to clean up our operation. And I think some of it, like I said, we're used to every coach being with his unit and kind of handling some of those substitutions. And I think this is a good thing for us, because now these kids got to take some ownership over it, lock in a little bit more mentally. But we got to clean up some of the operation.
I was going to ask about, the Bozeman helmets or the padded helmets.
So the Guardian helmets. So
okay.
So here's the deal with that. I think that by and large, I don't know. I don't have scientific evidence that this is going to help prevent anything.
Sure.
But I know this, if it prevents one, then whatever we invest in that is worth it. I think we have an obligation as coaches to preserve the greatest team game there is. This is outside of the military, this is the last great proving ground for young men, because this is not easy. You're not in an air-conditioned arena shooting 100 baskets a day. Mm-hmm. You're out here sweating and bleeding, and it's a gladiatorial sport. And my idea is that not only is it our obligation to know the best practices in terms of techniques, but also if there's anything technologically that we can use or equipment-wise that we can use that can prevent an injury, we want to do that. And so really you'll see most of our interior offensive and all of our interior offensive and defensive linemen are in them. And then we're kind of experimenting, just kind of selecting a guy a week. It's kind of a couple of linebackers, a couple DBs, a couple receivers, a couple running backs, just to see if there's, you know, if we can look at something on film and say, well, that might have been, did this help it? And, you know, certainly if we feel like it's going to benefit us, we'll continue to invest in it. All right, so day 3 today. I would say it was the day where the install caught up with the offense. You know, it's just, you can see a lot of, you know, so the way we kind of do our installs, we kind of do what we call mixed downs, first and second downs, normal down and distance, then third downs, which was yesterday, then some red zone stuff. And so now you've kind of got basically the entire field and all the down and distances that are on top of them. And while I thought there were still some really good things, we were excellent in 9-on-7. We were excellent in 7-on-7. So when the drills were kind of parted down, but when you put all the pieces together, a few more moving parts, a little bit more situational stuff, and they struggled. You know, so defensively, got to tip my hat to them. Those guys got after it. Our front line, I mean, I'm telling you right now, our D line is going to be a problem for everybody that we play. They really know how to get after the quarterback. We've got good beef inside. Even guys like Tucker and James Williams, they demand a double. They're going to beat most centers in this league one-on-one. So you demand a double. Now you're creating single opportunities for, you know, for guys like Tyrone and Derek, who had a really nice day today. Bryce Third, Dante Sparacco. So we've got a lot of options there. And thought those guys had a really good day today. Quarterback-wise, you know, Tucker had kind of a bounce-back day. Tucker was probably the best guy today in some respects, and you could see kind of again some of the install catch up with Casey, but Casey made some tremendous throws. He's got a very, very good arm, and he's got kind of a little bit of a moxie about him. Kind of has that quarterback feel, if that makes sense. Troy, when he's running the ball, looked really good today. Made a couple bad decisions in the pass game, and Travis, you know, Travis kind of working through that foot. But this is the first practice he got all the way through. And he did some things leadership-wise that I thought were very, very positive today. So I don't know if we got any more clarity today. You know, it's like every night I go to bed and I think, oh, we got this figured out. And then every day after practice, it seems my mind's a little bit different. So I'm excited to get to Saturday. Really, it seems like we were talking about last night. It seems like a long ways away, and it is. It's like 3 years away, but yet it'll be here on us like that. And I think we really need to get to a scrimmage. As crazy as it sounds, we're only 3 practices into this, but I really want to get to a scrimmage so we can have that true, as close as we can get to a game to evaluate these guys. So that's kind of the synopsis of the day, and take any questions you have.
So after 3 practices, after the first one, you kind of mentioned Troy having the best day. Yesterday, you spoke a little more about Casey. Today, Tucker. So what is that telling you? That it's just...
Yeah, flip a coin. Yeah, no. Well, I think that we have some good competition. That's what it's telling me. And, you know, what I was really pleased to see was that, you know, Tucker struggled a little bit. Well, the competitor in him came out. You know, and that's what I'm looking for, is who's the guy that's going to bounce back and fight and say, no, I want that. This is my job. And you got to have some dog in you. You know, you're not going to lay down and take it, and you're going to just keep fighting. And so I was pleased to see that today. You know, and especially when things are going good, it's easy to relax a little bit. And then to have that guy behind you, he's not going to take that day off. He's going to come back and fight for that. Well, now that puts you back in your spot. And so I think it's really going to benefit us. I mean, tremendously. You know, if we were talking to Chris a year ago about having a bad day of practice, I'm okay, who are you going to play, coach? You know, not that he would say it that way, but I mean, even myself, I'm going, who am I going to play? You know, and now we've got, I think, some options, and as we get through, you know, a week from now, when they've gone through this same install again, I think it'll be better.
After the spring, I know you had mentioned that Tucker, you know, still needed to take another step. I guess, where is he at in terms of progressing?
Well, he did a tremendous job this summer, because he was kind of the go-to guy. You know, a year ago it was Brady McChesney. He was our go-to guy, kind of organizing the PRPs and making sure everybody had scripts, and was kind of, you know, the guy that orchestrated everything in that regard. And really that fell to Tucker this summer. And I thought he did an awesome job of kind of being the point man, and kind of being that coach on the field. And so I saw that step take place there. And I think now it's just about, I mean, at the end of the day, what is this about? It's about production. That's what it's about. Consistently producing at a high level. And if your teammates see that and they trust you, then you'll be the guy, because the coaches will, you know, obviously see the same things. And so that's the next step for him, and really for all of these guys, is go consistently produce. That's what's going to separate these guys. Not having a great day and then having a subpar day. but stacking great days on top of one another. And we're not there yet, but I see some flashes, and I'm excited to see how this thing's all going to come together.
And 3 days into having Troy at quarterback, I guess through 3 days, just kind of where would you say? Because obviously, some of the position you play since high school.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you were to ask the guys on the team, I think coaches aside, if you just said, what do you think Troy can play? I think they would say just about anything. He's big, strong, fast, smart. I think he can play DB, I think he can play linebacker, he can play rush end, he can play tight end, he can play receiver, he can play running back, he can play quarterback. Probably with the exception of interior offensive and defensive line, he can play any position on the field. And now it's a matter of giving him the time to be able to master that. And, hey, if he ends up, if we feel like it's close, hey, it's a flip of the coin, I'm going to make sure he touches the ball 15, 20 times a game somehow, some way, whether that's wildcat quarterback, whether that's lining up a tailback. So we know he's going to be a critical and important part of our offense. And it's just a matter of, is he the guy? Can he master the pass concepts and be a good decision maker, when the bullets are flying? And so it's a pretty unique guy.
Does the identity of the offense, every one of those quarterbacks has a little bit of a different skill set.
Yeah.
So just deciding the quarterback competition play into what you want to do offensively with your offensive identity?
I think to a certain degree, like I was even telling Brian and Bob today, I'm like, okay, if this guy's in, let's think a little bit more this way. Let's put them in the best position to be able to execute what they're capable of doing. Let's look at their skill set, and then we've got enough offense to be able to kind of plug and play what they do best. But I don't think it's really like the DNA is not going to change. Like when we were struggling today, I'm like, just run the ball. And we run the ball. We run the ball against our defense pretty well. Just run the ball. And I know it's that temptation as an offensive coach is we've got all this install in and we've got to do this and we've got to do this. And one of the reasons we're doing these play-it periods is not just for our quarterback situation and our players, but our coaches. I'm like, if that's what they're going to give us, take it. Your job is to beat him, and Ty's job is to beat you. And so I want to create that competition within our coaches as well. And I think that it's just like you fall into these habits, and the habit is, well, we installed this today, so we've got to call more of it today. And when we're in play-it periods, like I told them, hey, we have a fundamental day tomorrow. Clean it up tomorrow. Go win today. And that's my message to them, and that's the message that I've been given to our team. And so we might had a few altercations out there with the players. Who knows? Might have I don't know, Ty's got bad shoulders, but other than that, I think he might have the advantage over Bob and maybe Army. So
outside of that front defensive line, with pads on or shells on, did you see anyone pop?
Well, I just say this: like it's really hard to look at anything run-wise when you're in helmets only, because it's a fit period, really. Well, now you can create some knockoff and work. And Isaiah Infante has really good vision and quicks. And Lane Sumner is a really good inside zone runner. He's got a good feel for the game. So those are two guys just like standing behind and watching when you can actually look at it from a perspective of this is more like real football. I thought those two guys did a nice job. The Gibson twins are extremely physical. They're extremely physical. And they just have heavy hands. They get their hands on you. It's hard to get off the jam. We're doing board drill to start. They were all about that. They like to scrap a little bit. So I like those guys from that perspective. I thought Curtis Amos did some good stuff in terms of taking the next step and embracing that physicality part. So, I don't know, I'll probably have to go back and watch a little bit more film. There's a couple guys maybe.
Along those same lines, will you just emphasize again why you guys chose to invest in the helmet pads?
Yeah, well, again, I think that essentially it comes down to this. It doesn't matter what it is. If we think it might prevent something, if it was a pill that we were told to take that was approved by the FDA, that they said this could potentially do it, which we do encourage our guys to take fish oil because that's, there's brain armor there too. And so we're into the holistic approach. Technique, technology, nutrition, and equipment. Every aspect of it, we try to take a look at it and decide what's going to be the best way for us to keep our kids safe and healthy.
You mentioned Divine Tullis the other day, but I guess what can you say about, kind of a little bit more about his skill set and just kind of what he brings? He's a really mature kid physically. Like when you watch him walking around, you're like, who's that guy? And, he's that 6'1", 6'1 and a quarter, probably 205. He's got good kind of deceptive speed. He's not a short area quick guy, and he's not a build-up speed guy, but he
kind of tends to run by dudes. He just kind of finds to be as fast as he needs to be. He's got experience. You know, he played a lot of football at the University of Hawaii over the last 2 years. He's been very humble and hungry. Him coming in here, I think he's excited to have a second opportunity, and he's just, you know, hungry to get more reps. And so, kind of be interesting to see how he continues to develop as he gets more comfortable here.
I know you mentioned that he was kind of late coming here. So I guess what was his recruiting kind of like?
Well, it was really a connection through Joey Thomas, who used to play here. He's the head coach at Garfield High School, and Joey had coached him at Ballard when he was in high school. And actually, that was one of the very first recruiting trips that I took when I was at Montana State. I was still coaching at Washington. I came over, I did the press conference, we were doing the bowl game. I went over and I did what I needed to do. We did our practice in the morning at UW, and then I started recruiting in the afternoon. I know Joey was a Bobcat, so I went and saw him, and one of the first guys that I got to meet was Divine Tullis. And we had offered him at that point. He was a high school quarterback athlete. We went through the recruiting process with him. He chose to go to the University of Hawaii. Had some things happen out there that, you know, felt like he wanted a fresh start. They had a coaching change. It was time for him to look for something different. Wanted to get back off the rock. And we talked about it a little bit in January, and the timing just wasn't right. Our semester started too soon. We couldn't get everything put together. And then, kind of out of the blue, Joey calls me about probably 3 weeks ago and says, "Hey, I think Divine might be interested." And so, you know, it worked out.
The passing game is obviously a two-way street. A lot of talk about the quarterbacks, but what's the receiver group's motivation in all of this, especially being a little bit unproven?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, what do you think about when you think about a receiver's personality? Let's play a little word association. I get an interview right now.
Okay.
What's the first thing if I said word? Give me one word, and then if you can't come up with it, then I'll let Bill go.
With receiver?
Yeah.
Possession.
Diva. That's exactly the word I was thinking. Today's not the day to ask me.
Okay.
It wasn't his best day.
Okay.
But leg strength, fine.
Okay.
Accuracy today could have been better. So, you know, he had a really good first 2 days, and you know, I don't know if the goalposts are, you know, more narrow here than they are out on, what do you call that field out there?
Dyke field.
Dyke field. I didn't know if it was Dice or Dyke. It's hard for me to understand stuff. So. Tell me the story behind it.
The head coach of the Golden Bobcats.
Oh, okay.
Salt Lake East High.
So, but that's a field. Why did they name the arena?
It was originally that was the baseball field.
Oh, okay.
And he was long. Even after he got out of football, basketball, he was the baseball coach.
Okay.
The baseball field was right at the corner of the drive in Katy.
Huh.
And that's when Katy wasn't a street; it was a country road.
Cool. All right, I guess.
I got one more real quick.
That's what I was trying to do there.
Now that you get pads on, that right guard position or the one of the guard positions is up for grabs. What's it going to take? What's the key element in that position to?
Well, the first thing we got to do is we got to get all of our guys back. So Woody had a cramp that they had. Well, and some I don't even know what the deal was, but basically he didn't participate yesterday. It was non-contact today, helmets only. He'll be back tomorrow. So right now Zach's kind of been the guy by default almost, you know. And so we got to get him going. We got to get Sean back. And I think that'll happen by Monday, maybe Tuesday for Sean, and then we can create some competition. Because right now, Zach's going at right guard, and if he needs a break, then we throw Sessions in, and you know, so we've got to get a couple of those older, when I say older, redshirt freshman guys back that are going to be able to compete for that. I think that's probably the biggest thing right now. All right, day 4 in the books here, Montana State University fall camp. Backed off on him a little bit. This was a man-to-man day for us, and so there's a lot of communication that takes place on defense. We don't run a lot of man, or haven't in the past, and that's something that we feel like we can do now. And so that was kind of the install emphasis today, as well as blitz pickup. And then we did a second play third at the end. You know, really felt like our offense again was pretty efficient in 9-on-7 and 7-on-7, and some busts in terms of the coverage stuff defensively with the first day of the man-to-man stuff going in. But they got better as practice went on, and I thought our kids did have good energy. You can see that mental fatigue coupled with the physical fatigue of going through the grind here, and you know, having these guys here for 12 hours a day for 4 straight days is going to catch up with them a little bit. But this is kind of the dog days. You push through this first 5-6 days, it does get better. Like I tell them all the time, it's going to be hard, it's going to hurt, but you're going to survive. And that's where we're at right now. We're seeing some guys that I thought, you know, tapped out a little bit yesterday in practice, and I was proud of some of those young guys that came out and participated and got better today. And I think that shows that they're resilient, and that's what you got to be able to survive. And so this is, like I told him, we're going to make it harder every day, and it was harder today probably on him mentally because we've had a lot of new install, but a good day. A really good day. I mean, we've got a ton of great film that we can go back and watch. We got some of our gap schemes, some of our cue runs in, and that puts more pressure on the defense. Probably my frustration with the offense maybe at the end was just little things like, Alex Neal, our senior center, he's got to get the ball back so that we can operate. And he struggled with that to a certain degree today. And so, he'll be better than that tomorrow, and I know he will. And he's going to be harder on himself than we're ever going to be on him. But continue to see strides. Biggest thing we've got to do, I think, is we've got to get to the Saturday scrimmage. We've got to look at some guys, and we've got to decide the pecking order of quarterbacks so we can start giving whoever that 1 and that 2 is a lot more reps. So that's kind of my synopsis for day 2 or 4, whatever the heck we're in. It's Groundhog Day. And take any questions.
Is tomorrow going to be a full pad day?
Yeah, it's our first full pad day.
Okay.
So yeah.
So what are you expecting to see tomorrow?
I'm not much different. I mean, I think kind of the days of full pads and everything's crazy different is kind of over. We can't just go out there and turn this into a full-on scrimmage. We'll probably have some tone setters at the beginning, let them get their, let them shake it out a little bit, and then we've got to get the same type of work done. We'll have situational work and play at work, and everything's got to center around us taking the next step. And so don't really focus too much on that. Probably Saturday's the first day that's going to be different for them.
Saw some guys shaking it up today, a couple battles head-to-head. Is there anything that you get benefit from, a little fight in camp? Is there any benefit, or is that just part of football?
I think you probably can recognize that as well as anybody. I mean, it's hot, you're tired, you're sick and tired of seeing that guy's face, and whether it's something they say or something they do, it sets you off, and I think it's good that we got a little bit of fight in us. So, can't go on for 20 minutes, get it out and let's move on. And so that's kind of what happened. And, those things are going to happen. Now, when it happens in a game, we got to have a little bit more discipline. But, that's kind of what camp's about, is everybody's fighting for a job. And nobody wants to be disrespected. Nobody wants to be made looked at. So,
Johnny D'Agostino, I'm just wondering, if you could reflect back on the past couple of years, kind of battling through some injuries and where he's at.
Just a really tough, resilient guy. Just kind of steady Eddie, always in the right place, always doing the right thing, always encouraging his teammates, always bringing other people with him. I think kind of a guy that's just a Bobcat legacy guy that just really gets what this program's about and takes a tremendous amount of pride in being a part of the Bobcat family, and is just a great example to younger guys. I mean, he's always positive, fighting through the injury, and you see him out here now making plays. And so, he's a great example, I think, to those young guys.
Yesterday, Tucker Rovick talked about a confidence issue in spring that he felt that he's tried to overcome. How would you evaluate his spring and kind of where he's at now with his confidence level?
Yeah, I probably would agree with that, because, like I said, I don't think it was any mystery to us that, there was going to be some issues potentially with Chris. And so really towards the tail end of spring ball, he took all the reps for the ones. And so it was an opportunity for him really to kind of establish himself as the guy coming into summer, us knowing that issue with Chris was on the horizon. And so, for whatever reason, he didn't step forward and kind of assert himself. And I think now he knows, well, that was a golden opportunity that I kind of let pass by, because now I'm in a quarterback competition. Had it been another way around, he would have been the clear number 1, and I would have preferred that. But, I think he's, hopefully understands that, hey, that didn't work for me, and I've got to take a different approach. And, I see him really taking charge and forming himself into a leadership role, but he's got to assert himself with this team. That's what I think. I mean, I think he's got to say, no, I'm the guy. Really, any of those guys. I mean, I know I never played quarterback, but I think about how I would be as a quarterback. It probably wouldn't be very fun to play with, but that's the way it's got to be. You've got to say, no, let's get it going. Hey, it's 3rd and 6, let's get it done. And I'm looking for somebody in that group to kind of emerge in that role.
You mentioned Neal struggling a little bit. What did you see from the other guys on the line today?
Some good, some bad, some ugly. It kind of depends on who's mixing. It's like watching Dante, when he was on the edge in a one-on-one, did an awesome job, and then we had a line game called, and he didn't really run it the right way, and that's going to happen. New terminology for him, those kind of things. We've got Tyrone Fontano's playing at a really high level. He's and has since last spring, and I think he's probably our best defensive lineman at times, and that's saying a lot when you look at Derek Marks, who had a really good day. When you look at a guy like Tucker Yates, who's considered one of the best interior defensive linemen in the Big Sky. When you look at a guy like Zach Wright, so I think we've got some really good players on the D-line, and it makes it hard on our offensive line. But Mitch is a really good player. Tui, today was probably a day that he kind of took a little bit of a dip, but up to this point in time, I've been really, really pleased with him. And I think that he'll continue to come on. Like I said, Lewis kind of quietly just going about his business. Zach Red filling in at one of the guard positions. So, I think we're going to be a pretty good offensive and defensive front. I mean, I think that's where it starts. And, not to sound redundant, but we got to figure out who our quarterback is, and I think a lot of pieces will come into play there.
offensive line, obviously, returners. How much does kind of the familiarity and chemistry help going into now this year?
I think there's a lot of trust that's built up with that group. Those guys spend a lot of time together. I mean, very similar personalities. They kind of, I don't know what they do. I was never an O-lineman either, but I think whatever it is they do together, eat probably is one of those things. But they're kind of a really cohesive group, and because of that, I think they kind of almost intuitively know, what you're going to do in this situation or I'm going to do in that situation. That's what you got to have. Those 5 guys have to be able to play as one.
Is there much personality in that group?
Not really. Well, Tui, holy cow. He's all personality, but you wouldn't necessarily see it. I think when they're in their element is where it comes out. And so yes, there's a ton of personality in that room, but they're a little bit reserved in public.
Right on.
What is the biggest quality or characteristic that you're looking ultimately to stand out in the quarterback battle when you choose your guy?
I think it's just 3 things, and I say this, it's pretty much my standard 3 line on the 3 things I want out of a quarterback. I think number 1, a great decision maker. Somebody that's going to take care of the football and put us in a position to be successful. Number 2 is accuracy. They've got to be able to spot the ball and not make every tough catch, put the ball somewhere where a guy can get yards after catch. And then number 3 is leadership, being able to command the offense and put trust in, people feel like, I know that guy can get the job done. And so those are kind of the 3 things that at the end of the day it's going to come down to. But I'd say this, one of the other things that's got to be is production. Who is consistently producing, and we've got a running tally going, and you got to take into account the mix and match that you're doing sometimes in fall camp with, are they with the 1s, are they with the 2s, are they with the 3s? That's why it's so much more important for us. We got to at least prepare this thing down to 2 after Saturday.
With Troy working with the quarterbacks, it's opened up reps for more running backs. So do you have any fresh thoughts on that position group and where they are now after 4 days? Yeah,
well, the one thing that's probably hurt us the most is Carl Tucker getting a little bit of an aggravated hamstring type thing, and hopefully he'll be back quickly from that. But those things can be different that way. So because that's kind of guy that was every down type of back for us. Tyler's more of a situational back, but I think Tyrell Burgess has taken full advantage of his new opportunity, and I think he's done some really nice things. I think the 2 freshmen that stand out probably the most right now are Isaiah Infonse and Lane Sumner. Okay. Justin Colley, I think splashes at times, still a little bit behind in terms of learning the system, and so those are, it's going to be interesting for that group, and you're going to see us get the ball in our playmakers' hands. Some of those guys like Willie P. and even Coy Steele, and our Q runs, and so we're going to have to be a little bit creative.
Did Lane seem like he was ahead of the curve when he got here?
Very smart. Yeah. Very smart. He picks up on things very quickly.
The fullback position is a group that you've built up to have some depth now. Can you talk about R.J. Fitzgerald and kind of role he'll play in this offense?
Yeah, R.J.'s just, he's probably, I'd say, like if you were to say who does everybody love? Everybody loves R.J., everybody loves Wilson Broad. Those guys that are just great team guys. They work hard, they do everything correct, they're there for their teammates, they bring great energy, and you want to reward those guys. You want to help them have a role. And so I think that's something that, he is true. That's what he is. He's a fullback at this level. He's probably not long enough to play linebacker. He's not a true tailback, but there's a spot for him, and it might be that 7 to 12 plays a game, but there's a spot for him, and he's going to take a great deal of pride in that. And if we say, hey, go stick your face on that middle linebacker or that outside linebacker, he's going to do it, and he's going to do the best job he can. But you got a guy like Blake Allred. He's very much in that mold, and then you're going to see Tyler do some of those things too.